What's up, everybody? This is Jump Wave. Today we're going to be doing a cover of Blinding Lights by The Weeknd on the Korg Volca Sample 2. And we're only using factory samples. So let's jump into it. Let's talk about the original track. The original track is in the key of E flat major, and the original tempo is 171 beats per minute. But we are going to cut it in half to 85.5 is going to be our tempo, and that's going to allow us, instead of having to use 8 memory spaces, we're only going to have to use 4. So let's jump into it. First thing we're going to lay down is the kick drum. This is sample 000, and we're going to put a kick on 1, 5, 9, 13, and 14. Next, we're going to lay down the snare. This is sample 24, and we're going to put one on 3, 7, 11, and 15. Next, we're going to have our hi-hats, and for the hats, we're using sample 58, and we're going to put one on every step 1 through 16. Now, Korg gear has this cool feature called motion sequencing, and we're going to take advantage of motion sequencing. Basically what motion sequencing is, it allows you to record all of your little knob turns into the sequence. So we're going to use this to kind of add a little bit of variation to our hat pattern to make it have a little bit more of a human feel. We're going to mess with the levels and record that into the sequence. So to turn this on, we hold down function, and step 12, that is on-off motion sequence. So our motion sequencing is on. We're going to hit play and then hit record. And all of our little turns of the knob here are now recorded into the sequence. And this little red light on the level control lets us know that we have motion sequencing recorded into the sequence. All right, now because this little drum pattern here repeats throughout the whole song basically, we're going to go ahead and we're going to save it to bank 1, bank 2, bank 3, and bank 4. Now on the last sequence, on sequence 4, we have a little bit of a different, we have a little bit more percussion added here. So we have a clap, and that is sample 34. And we're going to add a clap on beats 14 and 16. Let's listen. One more thing we're going to add is a sample of a cymbal, and that is sample 59. We're going to put that on step 11. But we're not done. We are going to reverse this cymbal so it adds a little bit of a transition sound to the pattern, because this is the end of the pattern and it's going to start back on that first measure. So what we're going to do is we're going to hold down function and hit reverse and then select part 5. Now all of part 5 is going to be reversed, but we only have one step programmed in, so that's the only thing that's going to get reversed. Let's listen. All right, let's go ahead, let's save that. And let's go back to pattern 1, where we are going to add some bass. We are using sample 127 for our bass. And we are going to add bass on steps 1, 13, and 15. Now, a cool thing about the Vocal Sample 2 that is not in the Volca Sample 1 is this ability to program each step. So this is an idea that was borrowed from some of the Electron boxes with their programmable steps. And this is a really cool feature, really turns this little sample player into a full-fledged groove box, in my opinion. So And if you don't know what I'm talking about, basically this allows you to edit the parameters per step. So instead of recording knob turns in with motion sequencing, now you can be much more precise and say, well, step 1 is going to have this parameter, step 13 is going to have this parameter, step 15 is going to have this parameter. Why does this matter for bass? Because we are changing the notes. Our bass sample is only the C note. So in order to have G's and F's and E flats, we need to be able to change those parameters per step. So to change the parameter, we hold down the step and then we hit function, let go of the step, and we turn the speed knob, and that lets us change the notes. One note value is per note. So if we're starting on C, 1 would be C sharp, 2 would be D, 3 would be D sharp, 4 would be E, so on and so forth. And you can go into the negative as well. -1 is B, -2 is B flat, so on and so forth. Okay, so our first note is F. So we're going to hold down, hit function, let go, and we're going to crank this up 5 note values, and that's going to give us an F. Our second note is also an F, and our last note is an E flat. Now let's listen. All right. Now you can see how these are different notes now. So we're going to go ahead and save this. Let's go to pattern 2. Pattern 2 is real simple. The notes are just C and C, so we don't have to do anything. I'm going to save that. Go to pattern 3, and pattern 3 is kind of the inverse of pattern 1. Pattern 1 was F, F, E flat. Pattern 3 is E flat, F. So we're going to go ahead and put steps in on 1, 13, and 15 again. Hold down step 1, function, release, and we're going to crank that up to 3. And crank this one up to 5. All right. Save that. Now pattern 4. Pattern 4 is a little different. We're going down now. So we got notes on 1, 9, and 13. And our first note is a B flat. So we're going -2. Our next note is an A flat. So that's -4. And the last one, excuse me, -4. And the last one is a G, which is -5. Very cool. Let's save it. Now, let's listen to it all together now so we can get an idea of how it's going to sound. So with the original Volca, if you wanted to chain patterns together, they had this feature called song mode, which was pretty convoluted, and I basically had to bust out the manual every time I wanted to use it, so didn't get used a lot. On the Volca Sample 2, however, they have this feature called pattern chaining, which is very, very easy. So all you do is hold down memory, like you would load a pattern, and now you just select all the patterns holding together that you want to chain together. So I've selected 1, and then I put my second finger on 4. So patterns 1 through 4 are now chained together. So when I hit play, it's not just going to play pattern 1 or 2 or 3. It's going to play pattern 1, 2, 3, and 4 in sequence, and then back to 1. Let's listen. Alright, so you can already tell the song is starting to come together, but we still have some more stuff to add. So let's go back to pattern 1, and we're going to add a pad sound. So we are using the string sample. This is sample 120, and we are pretty much just going to add a step at the beginning of each sequence. So we're going to add one here. And this is going to be an F note, so we need to turn this up to 5. And let's listen. So So you can hear it cuts off about halfway through. The sample is not long enough to last throughout the entire pattern. But there is a trick. The Volca Sample has this feature called loop. And what loop does is when the sample ends, it will start playing again immediately. So it loops back and forth. We can take advantage of this to use it to kind of fake a sustained pad sound all the way through. So we're going to turn loop on. And let's listen. So it's still got a little bit of a rough start and stop. So we can change the length of the sample. And by changing the length of the sample, it essentially speeds up or slows down how fast it loops, because a shorter sample is going to loop faster. Longer sample is going to loop slower. So if we mess with this length, we can kind of time it so that the sample ends and then begins again on a downbeat, which will make it have a much smoother transition. So let's see what happens. Already you can tell it's a little smoother. And if you tweak it a little bit more, you can kind of dial it in there. So I think I changed the length to 110 out of 127. So cool little trick there for extending out some shorter samples. So we're going to save that. That's good. We're going to go to pattern 2. We are also going to put an F note here. We're going to do the same thing. Loop. Edit this length. Sounds good. Save it. Let's go pattern 3. And for pattern 3, we are going to do an E flat. So we're going to put that there. We're going to crank that up 3. Let's turn the loop on. And because it's a little slower than the F, we're going to have to turn that length down a little bit. So I just kind of turned the length up a little bit, up to 112. And we'll save that. And then our last note, we're going to add here is going to be a B flat, and we're going to turn that down 2 notes. And same thing, the loop. And just turn that up a little bit, 118. Very good. Let's save it. Let's listen to it all together now. Patterns 1 through 4. There we go. Now the last thing we need to add is that synth top line, that catchy part of the song that everybody loves. And for that we're going to use sample 120. That same string sample we used for the synth part, we are going to use for the top line. So the synth pattern in the first sequence is going to be the same in the second sequence. And the last sequence only has 1 note. And the third sequence has a phrase that repeats twice. So it's a pretty simple little line, but it is very catchy and very effective. So we are going to add notes here on steps 1, steps 9, and step 13. Oh, excuse me. We're adding steps on 1, 5, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 14. Excuse me. So here's our notes. We got F, F. This is a E flat, F, G, E flat, C, you don't have to do anything, but just to be safe. And the last note is an E flat again. Let's listen. There you go. Let's save that. Go to pattern 2. Like I said, pattern 2 is the same as pattern 1. So 1, 5, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 14. We got an F on step 1, F on step 5, E flat on 8, F on 9, G on 10, E flat on 11, C on 12, and E flat on 14. Let's listen. Cool. Let's save it. And let's load up pattern 3 now. Pattern 3, you have a step on 1, 2, 4, and 6, and steps on 9, 10, 12, and 14. First note is a B flat high. Then we got a G. F, E flat, same thing, high B flat, G, F, and E flat. Let's listen. Very good. We'll save it. And then our last sequence, we just have an F. Or, nope, not an F. We have, yeah, an F. We have an F right here. Crank that up 5. We're going to use our little loop trick again to extend it out. Very good. Let's listen to it all together now. It looks like sequence 2. This is a little funky sound in here. Let's go ahead and I'm gonna mess with this. This pad doesn't sound right to me. All right, last thing we're gonna do is we're gonna add some reverb to the mix. So to add reverb, you have to go back and do it to each pattern, but it's worth it. So to add reverb, we're going to hold down Function, hit Reverb, and then select all the tracks. And now our reverb mix knob will work. We don't want that much reverb, so we're going to dial it down. The trick with reverb is to dial it in to where you think it sounds good and then dial it down a little bit more after that. So I got it around 40 here. You play with it, you tell me where you think it sounds best, but we're going to go ahead and save that now. We're going to go to pattern 2, same thing, turn on reverb for everything, dial it in, 40, save, pattern 3, same thing, reverb, all, save, pattern 4, reverb, all, and save. Now let's listen to it all together with reverb. All right. And that is Blinding Lights by The Weeknd on the Korg Volca Sample 2 using only the factory samples. Let me know in the comments below what you thought. What samples would you have used? And what songs would you like to hear me cover next? Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like. If you want to see more content from me, go ahead and subscribe to my channel. Hope you have a great day. Thanks for watching.